In this video, we're going to get started by recreating the attacking state. What we're going to do is we're going to have it move a little bit smoother, and just so you're aware, there's one little area of code we may want to comment out just so you can truly see this code work the way it's supposed to. Until we add more functionality later, which we will be. This isn't the last of the attacking state. This is just the beginning of the new version of the attacking state. Until we really put the code in, you really won't see it react the way it's fully supposed to. But for right now, it'll do. It still does its job. We have function C player, and we can't use enemy not visible because we don't have walls that can block the view of the player or the AI. We have blocking volumes, and unfortunately, that doesn't pick up blocking volumes. So we have to use function C player and basically check for blocking volumes. If there is a blocking volume, we go to state wandering and we set enemy to none. Now this is the code you'd want to comment out right here. And the reason is if, that way, if the enemy sees you, you can watch him as he chases you all along the map. Even if you turn corners, he'll chase you everywhere, and he'll chase you in a proper way. He won't run up against walls or do weird things. He'll actually follow you throughout the maze properly. So if you really want to see this code work, I suggest you comment this out. But in all reality, if he can't see you anymore, he really should just stop pursuing you. Now, eventually, we're going to have him follow you a little bit, at least until he last saw you, and maybe even try a little bit of searching around or that kind of thing to try to find you after you've already disappeared on him. But for right now, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that later. So after we have our C player, we move down to find path to enemy. This creates our path to the enemy. Once again, we set a goal, and we also set a constraint. Our goal is the nav mesh goal underscore at, and we basically set the goal at actor enemy. So we're trying to find the enemy, and then we also we set a constraint that we want the path toward the enemy, and it's basically setting that direct path toward the goal. And now what we're going to do is we're going to return the find path function this time instead of use it like we did before. And the reason is because it's going to give us a true or false in its return value. So what we're going to do then is in function decide moving path, we're going to check to see if that's true. That means that there actually is a path to the enemy. And if there is an actual path to the enemy, we're going to set the nav goal location to the enemy's location. We're going to set the final destination to the nav goal location, kind of like what we did before. And then we're going to say if the navigational handle dot actor reachable enemy. So if we can reach this actor, the enemy, then we want to set the move target to the enemy and next location to goal equals nav goal location. Okay, so what we're doing is we're basically like before, we're saying okay, the move target, the target we're trying to get to is the enemy, and then we're going to, just in case, we're also going to set the next location to goal to the nav goal location. So in case if we want to use a move to instead of a move toward, we have that option as well. Then otherwise, if for some reason the actor is not reachable, we're going to get the next move location. So we're going to then follow the path, much like we did with the random path. If for some reason we can't create a path to the enemy, right now we're just going to send a log out that says no path to reach enemy. Later we may decide to just have the AI go back to a wandering state. We may have it do something else, because if it can't get to the enemy, what's it going to do? Is it going to just, should it just sit there? So, that's kind of where we're at with it. Alright, so then we have function set next location and path. That pretty much is exactly like the function before up in our wandering state where we have it right here, set next location and path. Okay, so scrolling back down here, we're going to then go to function should pursue directly. This returns a true or false, and it's just a check. It's going to see if we are within a close encounter distance and if the actor is reachable. So if we're within this distance that we want the AI to react, and on top of that, the actor is reachable, then we're going to return true. And this means basically, I'll show you the code in a second, is that we're actually going to have the enemy really go after the player at that point. It's not going to follow a path to the player. It's going to actually go right at the player. Now, this close encounter distance is a float that we set. It's just a basic float that we set down in our default properties. So up in variables, we set variable float close encounter distance, and down here in default properties, I set it to 1,000. You may want to set it to something else. Just remember, it's in units, so 1,000 units is pretty big. You may want to shorten it up, or maybe even do it based off of whether, it's really just kind of a tweaking thing because if you set it too short, that means the AI will probably walk right past the player. If you set it too long, it means the AI, might not even follow a path. It might just go off the path. So you have to be kind of careful, where you set it. It's kind of a tweaking issue there. All right, so to get back to where we were, I got to find our spot here. Um, we go to function attack enemy next. Now this is a lot like before. All we do is we just set the move target to equal to the enemy, and we set whether if there is a weapon, we get the distance, and then if it's within the distance of the weapon, we fire. And this time we're going to use pawn.bot fire, and we're going to pass in true. But later we will obviously be changing some of this code as well. So instead of setting our own start fire, we're going to use code that already exists inside the pawn, which is bot fire, because that returns a boolean for us to use that we can put to use later. Inside our function begin state, we use our decide moving path function, which is basically, like I said before, our decide moving path function calls our find path to enemy, which creates our path, and then we also set all our destinations. And that's really what gets it started, that as soon as the creature goes into this attacking state, it finds the path to the enemy and pursues the enemy. In our begin label, we use wait for landing like always first, because if the creature's falling, we want to make sure he lands first before we do any of the rest of the stuff. And then we say if the function should pursue directly returns true, we go to pursue. So we have a new label here called pursue. Otherwise, decide the moving path and move toward that location. So it's just going to constantly recreate paths because obviously the enemy is most likely to move, and then it's going to move towards that next location to goal. Now, what this does then is, let's say let's say for instance you set your player's speed to 1,000 and you're able to travel from one end of the map to the next within no time. What this will do then is it'll make the AI smart enough to realize that if you move too far in one direction, it will recalculate a path that might be easier to get to than doing something completely, 360, where it has to follow you all the way around the map. It might actually just cut its circle in half. So it kind of makes the AI a little bit smarter by doing it this way. Then we go to begin, and it resets it constantly. So the only way we get out of our begin label is if we should pursue directly to this creature. Then we go down to pursue label, and we do a wait for landing, of course, just in case. Of course, in our game, there really isn't any jumping, really, but just in case that there is a jump or something later, we want that wait for landing to be there. Then we attack the enemy, because if we're within that range and he can see it directly and he can get to it directly, we let the AI attack, because obviously there's a reason to attack. Now, then what we do is we do our move toward move target, so the AI obviously is going to move directly towards the enemy at this point. Attack enemy also sets the move target, so it also makes sure that every time we tick through this, that we are constantly saying where the enemy is again, because obviously the enemy location changes. If should pursue directly becomes false for some reason, if the AI moves too far away, then it goes back to following, it goes back to begin, and it goes back to following a path. So it allows it to, it allows it to turn corners again properly and act more like the AI should. Otherwise, if it's not false, then we continuously go and pursue at this point. If during all of this, for some reason the player turns the corner, like I said, and hides behind a blocking volume, then at that point, no matter what situation the state attacking might be in, at that point we go to state wandering. This is going to override all of that. So like I said, you're going to want to comment this out if you really want to see this function get put to its full use. And that completes this video.